Hi, I'm Bakhtar Salwa and welcome to A News. Let's see the top stories. Russian President Vladimir Putin announces an Easter ceasefire as Russia and Ukraine swap hundreds of captured soldiers in the largest exchange. US President Donald Trump considers halting peace talks if Russia or Ukraine make a deal too difficult. Iran and the United States have concluded a second round of Omani-mediated nuclear talks in Rome. Russia has announced a temporary halt to its military activities in Ukraine, citing humanitarian reasons ahead of Easter celebrations. The move was declared by President Vladimir Putin during a meeting with top military officials. President Putin ordered a ceasefire to begin at 6 p.m. Moscow time on Saturday, lasting until midnight Sunday. Putin also urged his military to stay alert in case of violations. The Russian Defense Ministry confirmed that commanders on the ground have been instructed to follow the order. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky, in a social media post, responds skeptically to an Easter truce proposed by Russian President Vladimir Putin, accusing him of trying to play with human lives. Russia and Ukraine have carried out their largest prisoner exchange since the war began more than 3 years ago. Both countries confirmed the exchange on Saturday. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said 277 Ukrainian troops were released from Russian captivity. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry reported that 246 of its service members were returned. In a separate move, Russia handed over 31 wounded Ukrainian prisoners in exchange for 15 injured Russian soldiers, citing a gesture of goodwill and medical necessity. This marks the biggest swap since the war began in 2022. To explore the implications of this development, I'm joined by Andriy Ordinovich, a military expert who is joining us from Lviv region. Mr. Ordinovich, welcome to A News.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Ordinovich, how genuine do you think this pause in fighting is? Is it a strategic move by Russia or a true humanitarian gesture tied to Easter?
I believe it for all Ukrainians as well as for Ukrainian political leadership. We would very much appreciate if it would be a strategic move. But based on our president quotation regarding this ceasefire, we are not believe it very much. As President mentioned it, it is really an attempt to play with human lives. And noted that the air raid siren was sounding across our country. It is exactly 45 minutes before the so-called ceasefire declaration. Easter, it is one of the biggest holidays in Ukraine, in this part of the world. And Easter celebrates the defeat of death and hope of salvation. And this act of exchanging prisoners of war, it was one of the elements of humanity. And we believe that the Russian will follow this kind of offer for the Easter celebration for Ukrainian people to have at least partially peace entire 1.5 days.
So how might Ukraine's Western allies interpret and respond to this temporary halt? Could it open any diplomatic opportunities?
As you know, it for the last week, and we know that in upcoming week, we are going to have numbers of negotiation on bilateral level, on multilateral levels, in Paris consultation on ceasefire. Hopefully, it's going to be a good sign from the Russian side. But as probably you know, since the initial, after the US-Ukraine negotiation 11 of March, when it was decision to have a full ceasefire on three dimensions, on air and maritime, as well as on the land. But for this exactly 1 month, we received more than 70 missiles to our cities and targeting our critical infrastructure. We had more than 6,000 glided bombs To the front lines are also the cities, as well as it was more than 2,200 the Shaheds type of striker UAVs. But keeping information from the front line, what I know right now, in the Kharkiv direction, it looks like the Russian keeping ceasefire. But on the Donetsk direction and Zaporizhia direction, we can notice right now the number of artillery shells.
Mr. Ordinovich, many thanks for your valuable time and perspective. It has been a pleasure having you on A News.
Thank you very much for having me. All the best.
Thank you very much. The United States will walk away from efforts to broker a Russia-Ukraine peace deal unless there are clear signs of progress soon, U.S. President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Friday. President Donald Trump stated that the United States would take a pass on trying to resolve the Russia-Ukraine war if either Russia or Ukraine makes it excessively difficult to bring the conflict to an end. While signaling frustration over the stalled progress, Trump stopped short of saying that the United States was entirely stepping back from negotiations. He emphasized that he still believes there is a strong possibility to end the conflict, suggesting that developments on the ground may soon bring the situation to a critical turning point.
Robert F. Kennedy. If for some reason one of the two parties makes it very difficult, we're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass. But hopefully we won't have to do that. No, Marco is right in saying it. We want to see it end.
Do you think Russia's playing you?
No, nobody's playing me. I'm trying to help. This was Biden's war, by the way. By me getting involved, they'll say, "Oh, Trump." This is not Trump's war. This is Biden. This is a war that should have never happened.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that there had already been some progress made toward a peace settlement in Ukraine. However, he acknowledged that contacts with Washington continued to be difficult. Peskov emphasized that Russia was striving to resolve the conflict, but only while safeguarding its own national interest. He reiterated that Moscow remained open to dialogue with the United States. Thursday's meeting in Paris marked the first substantial high-level in-person talks involving European powers around President Donald Trump's proposed peace initiative. President Zelensky's office described the talks as constructive and positive.
We're not going to continue with this endeavor for weeks and months on end.
In our previous Bulletin talk show, Kerry Wilson discussed the issues surrounding Washington's signaling of urgency in the Russia-Ukraine peace deal negotiations with Professor of Politics at Kiev University, Alexei Haran. He explained to us which side of the war needs to be under pressure in order to achieve a stable ceasefire deal.
You will not reach a ceasefire or stable agreement, stable peace if there's no pressure on Russia. Okay, so far Trump was pressing Ukraine to accept conditions. Okay, we accept American conditions for full ceasefire. What Russia said no. And after that, there was no pressure on Russia at all. We don't know what's going behind the scene, but the signs actually clearly shows that the United States are not going, well, actually, we are not pressing Russia in the right direction. So this is not negotiations from the position of force. Vice versa, this is invitation for Russia to steal what Russia gained during the aggression. So I think this is not a good position, for the country which pretends to be a mediator and which was an ally of Ukraine, actually. So now what could happen if United States withdraw from negotiation process? The problem is what they will do next. Whether they are going to continue to support Ukraine or not, and whether they are going to press Russia as an aggressor. These are huge questions, and unfortunately, I am not very optimistic at this point. So my feeling is that if America will go from negotiations, it actually will show that there's no clear will from the President Trump to stop this war. Again, if you want to stop this war, you need to pressure Russia.
Iran and the United States have concluded a second round of nuclear talks in Italy's capital, Rome. The two sides have agreed to task experts to discuss the framework for a potential nuclear deal before meeting again in Oman next Saturday.
Iran and the United States have decided to bring in experts to begin discussions on a nuclear deal on Saturday. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated that this agreement was reached following a second indirect meeting between the two sides amid President Donald Trump's threat of military action.
As
I said, the negotiations were held in a constructive atmosphere, and I can say that they are moving forward, and we are moving forward. There is no reason for too much optimism. We cannot say that we are really optimistic. We must be very cautious, but there is no reason for much pessimism either. We must walk a middle path, reasonable and calm.
In the meeting that took place last week, Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, held a 4-hour discussion. Iran, emphasising that its nuclear programme is for peaceful purposes, has agreed to certain limitations in exchange for the lifting of international sanctions. US President Donald Trump seeks a new deal to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. There are reports suggesting that Israel has not ruled out attacking Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran has expanded its uranium enrichment activities beyond the limits set in the 2015 agreement, causing concern in the West. According to Iran's position, halting uranium enrichment, reducing enriched uranium stocks, or dismantling centrifuges is unacceptable.
Iran marked its annual Army Day on Friday with a large-scale parade in Tehran, showing off missiles, drones and military vehicles. It came just a day before nuclear talks with the United States was held in Rome. President Masoud Pezeshkian attended the event, praising the country's armed forces. State television reported that domestically developed drones, including jet-powered models, were shown in the parade in Tehran. In addition to the capital, military parades were staged in other major cities across the country. In our previous Bulletin talk show, we discussed ongoing nuclear talks between Iran and United States and what does it mean for the Middle East and the world in general, with Tom Gross, political analyst from Tel Aviv, Israel, and Anna Evans, geopolitical analyst from Lisbon, Portugal.
And from Israel's point of view, the regime in Tehran having a nuclear arsenal is an existential threat. It's a bigger threat to Israel than to other countries because Israel is so small. A single small strike by any nuclear power, Iran or anywhere else, it's not clear that Israel will survive such a strike. So Israel is disappointed, I think, a little bit in that Donald Trump, on the one hand, he's been quite firm in saying that the Americans will not allow the Islamic regime to have a nuclear weapon. On the other hand, he's kind of giving mixed signals as well, that he wants an agreement for the sake of an agreement, rather than a real lasting agreement that for once and for all will prevent this regime in Tehran building a nuclear arsenal.
This is a historical moment in the sense that we actually have indirect negotiations. Of course, they are mediated by Oman and they are being held in a third country, Rome. But the geopolitical situation is very advantageous to these negotiations. First of all, because Iran has lost its frontline boots in the Middle East. So Hezbollah has been pretty much dismantled in its operational capacity. Same thing with Hamas. And the Houthis in Yemen are also facing a lot of attacks and also decreased capacity. So basically those forces that Iran used at the front end of its Middle East influence, at the very end of its far-stretching influence and attempt over Israel, are pretty much dismantled.
Tensions are rising in Serbia as students rally behind the chair of Belgrade University, who is now facing charges for supporting the protests. The controversy has added fuel to an already heated political climate. Vladan Jokic, who denies the charges, is accused of abuse of office after backing student-led protests that erupted following a deadly roof collapse in Novi Sad last year. The incident killed 16 and sparked daily rallies, the biggest challenge to President Alexander Vučić in years. Vučić and other high-ranking officials have accused the Western nations of fueling the unrest to destabilize Serbia. Thousands of Orthodox Christians gathered in Jerusalem for the Holy Fire ceremony, one of the most sacred rituals leading up to Easter.
Thousands of worshippers gathered on Saturday to celebrate the Holy Fire ceremony in Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre, believed to be the burial site of Jesus Christ. The ritual, which takes place every Holy Saturday, draws pilgrims from around the world. According to tradition, at exactly 2 p.m. local time, a sunbeam enters through the church's ceiling and lights a lamp placed in the tomb. After hours of waiting, the Greek Orthodox Patriarch emerged from the sealed tomb with a candle said to be lit by the holy fire. The flame quickly spread from hand to hand, filling the church with flickering light and chants, and then extended to worshippers standing in the narrow streets nearby. Located in the Christian quarter of East Jerusalem's Old City, the church remains a sacred place for many. Notably this year, Easter is celebrated on the same day, April 20th, by both Catholic and Orthodox Christians, a rare coincidence as the two usually mark it weeks apart.
Turkey's ambitions in aviation have soared to new heights. The nation's first domestically developed manned jet-powered aircraft, the Hurjet, has officially gone supersonic. In a groundbreaking test flight, the advanced jet trainer reached Mach 1.2, approximately 1,470 kilometers per hour, marking a historic moment for Turkey's aerospace sector. In a landmark test flight, Turkey's Hurjet advanced jet trainer has reached a speed of Mach 1.2, roughly 1,470 kilometers per hour. Turkish Aerospace Industries, or TAI, confirmed the achievement, calling it a pivotal step in the evolution of Turkey's defense aviation program. The test demonstrates the technical progress behind the Hurjet and also underlines Ankara's commitment to enhancing its homegrown defense technologies. The Hurjet is a single-engine jet-powered aircraft designed for both advanced pilot training and light attack roles. It represents a critical element in Turkey's broader strategy to modernize its air force and reduce dependency on foreign military platforms. In a major development supporting this vision, TAI has inked a significant deal with GE Aerospace for 100 turbofan engines that will power the Hurjet fleet. The plan is ambitious: deliver 100 aircraft to the Turkish Air Force and manufacture an additional 300 for global export by the 2030s. The Istanbul Digital Art Festival is making international headlines once again. With the support of Turkey's Ministry of Culture and Tourism, the festival held an exclusive international preview in Paris, ahead of its highly anticipated 5th edition this June. The event brought together influential figures from the worlds of diplomacy and art, offering a glimpse into how artificial intelligence is reshaping the future of creativity. The international preview of the Istanbul Digital Art Festival was hosted at the Culture Center of the Azerbaijan Embassy in Paris. The event attracted over 200 attendees, including diplomats, artists, and cultural leaders from both Turkey and France. One of the evening's major highlights was the unveiling of Memory of Anatolia, an AI-powered digital artwork developed by Turkish art studio Oj. This immersive piece was created using millions of photographs from the Anadolu Agency's archives. It offers a unique portrayal of Turkey's social, cultural, and political history through the lens of machine learning, transforming decades of archival visuals into dynamic digital storytelling. Organizers explained that Memory of Anatolia is a reflection of the fusion between data, heritage, and artistic expression, creating a powerful and emotional experience that reimagines history through the eyes of artificial intelligence. The event also featured a captivating solo exhibition by Shusha, Azerbaijan's first AI artist. Shusha's live performance added a distinctive layer to the evening, further highlighting the growing global influence of artificial intelligence in the world of contemporary art. Azerbaijan's ambassador to France, Leyla Abdullayeva, shared her enthusiasm about the occasion. She noted that this marked the first time their cultural center had hosted a digital art exhibition and expressed hope that the festival would continue to foster global connections between artists and audiences, showcasing the transformative power of digital creativity. Well, that's all we have for now from Baku. Thank you for tuning in and keep watching A News.